Hi guys, so I am here to do talk about the second half of Marion Davies' The Times We Had. It's been a second. I'm catching up on some of my posts and work and things like that. I've been traveling and things are, I've been traveling. So I've been a fair bit jet lagged and in the middle of a few work projects and stuff like that. So catching up finally. Anyway, it's good to see you guys, or at least talk to you. So the second half, at some point while we were people were posting on my first half post, I saw something where one of you guys said, oh, this book wasn't quite written by Marion. It was actually derived from a set of recordings. And sure enough, on the back of the book, very helpful to read the back of the book sometimes, it says exactly that. It says that it was, like I said, derived from a set of recordings, which makes me think, in the last post, I was talking a little bit about how it felt like she was withholding a bit, almost like she was directing the narrative, wasn't being completely open and free with her life story. It was kind of like she wanted to control the narrative a little bit. And when I think about this, the fact that it wasn't really a book that had the benefit of an editor, the benefit of a ghostwriter. These are all things that can pull from a person more depth, more information, more color on these events, especially for a person who's not, a writer by craft or by trade. And in realizing that, I thought, oh, okay, now this makes sense. And it further makes sense because who knows if she even wanted this to be written, she might have just been recording things off the cuff with the mind that maybe, she would write a book. And it makes sense that she would be a bit protective. The whole idea of writing down your life story and picking and choosing from events is that have happened to you and to loved ones, it could be very daunting. So it just clarified, I think, first of all, the jumps. There's a lot of story jumps and there's a lot of extra explanation from the editor, the supportive writer. But it also kind of illuminated a bit more, for me at least, why it felt like she was maybe not telling the full scope of certain stories. Anyway, so diving into the second half and some of the stories that are located therein. Again, what an extreme life to have lived in that time period where so many people were living without electricity, and here you have this castle on a mountaintop that has electricity and is hosting some of the most known names of that time period. I'm kind of doing this off the cuff. I have these notes in a notebook that is left behind in another country that I will be returning to soon. So excuse me if I'm kind of hemming and hawing as we're going through, but so yeah, I'm looking back at some of the stories and moments that struck me in this bit. And, again, huge age difference between her and William Randolph. And now in the second half, I got a sense of how much she really cared for him and protected him, his legacy, his memory, even in these recordings or in this latter part of her life. And, you know, she talks a bit about how when there was the economic crash, that she wanted to support him, wanted to help him out because his business suffered greatly. And so she went and sold a lot of her own real estate and other items, and tried to pool together some money in order to help him. But beyond that, you could tell, you know, beyond the sort of finances and the fact that she was willing to have a cost to herself in order to help him. The way she talks about him, some of the stories, you actually get a better idea of who he is rather than who she is. And she speaks about him with such respect. He's always the smartest guy in the room. He's always busy, you know, with really important things. He's always advocating for higher learning, for a cultured life. She's so well taken care of living with him. And it's because of his kindness. She speaks of him very kindly. And so I thought there was something really beautiful about, I think, about where she ends up in terms of that relationship, how much she sort of cared and advocated for him in the latter part of the book. Now, again, you know, crazy times, crazy life. There were some things that I was, again, not just, you know, struggling with reading about. She talks a little bit about the Japanese internment camps in World War II. There was an internment camp that was very near one of their houses. Can you imagine? One of their houses in California. And there's a fair bit of like, let them eat cake. You know, she talks about how she doesn't understand why they're complaining because, you know, she's read the menu and they have amazing chicken or whatever the item on the menu was that she said this shows that they should be okay. And her primary concern was that some people had escaped and they were revolting. Now, if you don't know about this part of American history, a lot of Japanese people were stripped of their property and were put into internment camps during World War II, and many never got their property back after the war was done. And so it's just a piece of American history that's worth looking into if you're not familiar with it. But anyway, yeah, that was tough to read. I mean, she's living in a house with many houses on property. One of them, I think, was even called like Snow White. And it just felt a little, I mean, out of touch, right? So that was, like I said, that was a tough read. And then there's another one too, but in this one, thankfully, I feel like the Hearsts were just, they had moral character in this one. But and it's so weird, right? You're reading someone's story and they're kind of telling their truth, maybe not even thinking that it's going to be put into a book, not at that point. Maybe they think they're going to have some sort of like review of it. This is a rough draft version or whatever it is, right? And I wonder if she did get a chance to actually review the book ahead of time, if she would have changed maybe some of the stories she shared. I'm sure she would have gone into greater depth and maybe illustrated things so that it could have had a little bit more clarity. But yeah, it's hard to just read it and not sit there and kind of put my own and our own time periods perspective onto everything and bring in, judgments and so forth, right? But there was this story that she told. They had a party in Hearst Castle, and which is in California. If you guys haven't seen it, it's really cool. You can tour the castle. It's epic because there was a female architect who built it, who built a number of projects with William Randolph Hearst. Her name was Julia Morgan. She was extraordinary and she was very unique for her time. The two of them were building projects all throughout, I think, the US and Mexico, maybe Europe, at a time where there were very, very, very few female architects. And there's some great stories about Julia Morgan as well. So I'm sharing that with you guys just in case you want to look into that. But the point is this, they're having a party and there's some really incredible people that were staying up at the house, and suddenly this quote unquote nobleman from, I don't know, like Germany or Austria or something like that. That doesn't matter. The point is that quote unquote old nobleman, not, shows up on his yacht at the coastline, uninvited, but hey, I'm here. We'd love to join in on the party. And so what they did was they kind of rearranged sleeping arrangements and had him and maybe another couple of people from the boat come up. And so some of the guests who were more regulars, I guess, moved down to the boat so that, these new guests could feel the experience, I guess, of the castle and the event that they were hosting there. Anyway, these guests, when they came back, they said, man, there's some shady stuff going on that boat. And there was a young girl who was being abused. And just, gross. So William Randolph, you discover in the book later on, finally tracked the girl down, and Marion says, if I knew, I would have, basically beaten the crap out of these guys, right? But they discovered after the fact, I guess. And when William Randolph finally tracked down the girl and had sent out, made sure that she was supported to get, I guess, healing and all of the other sorts of things that she might need from, education and just financial help in order to try to offer some sort of, I guess, protection for this young woman after discovering what had happened. And I just thought, man, that shows, I was grateful to read that, because that showed a level of just moral character that in the face of something disgusting like that, it struck her enough where she had to retell that story, which I thought was interesting, telling. I don't know. What do you guys think about it? And these are some of the tougher things, right? You're reading, and it's, again, like, just wild. There's a story about a young guy who came through it was rough, right? That part of California can be really crazy weather-wise. And so when people were flying in, if you didn't fly in at the right times, on certain times of year, you ran the risk of being in grave danger. In fact, she lost some very, very dear friends to a plane crash, and you could tell that there was a fair amount of trauma for her afterwards. But there was another plane crash that had happened that she talked about where there were some young military guys. I think they were on it was during the war, World War II, and they were on maybe a training mission or something like that. There were a bunch of young guys, and the only person who survived was the pilot, and he was very much, if he survived the injuries that he had sustained, he was going to be in big trouble. And she had visited him with the military police. She visited him in the hospital and just offered him a tremendous amount of comfort and tried to reach out as a human being and connect with him and offer him hope, something to live for, because the guy was in dire straits emotionally as well as physically. And eventually, you know, he did get in trouble big time, and he did go home, and he did have a family with his super young wife. The guy was like 17, right? He had a family with her, and these were all things that Marion learned through sort of correspondence with the young guy. And I don't know, again, you know, the complications of being a human being. There are things that could make a person pull away, and then there are things that make you really, you know, glad that this person existed and engaged with the world in the ways that they did. There's also this one story that she mentions. You know, they would go to Europe often, and she talks about these tours that William Randolph would force everyone to take, because they would take a big group of friends and family and so forth. And she talks about how everybody would be super bored, but William was like, no, we have to go and see the museums, or we have to go on these like educational sort of tours. And he could go for hours, and the rest of the group is like, oh my gosh, can you just let us go? Can we just go get a croque monsieur, a glass of wine? She's like, and it sounds like she was a little bit in that group, the group number 2, but out of respect for William Randolph, she kept going. But I was laughing to myself because I'm totally like in the nerd troop, and like, you know, a 2-hour tour is sometimes like a 3.5, 4-hour tour. And I was like, it was just funny to hear about it from the other people's perspective, because I was like, yeah, but it's so fun. Anyway, those events and escapades were fun to read, extraordinary as well, of course. There is one event where she's with William Randolph Hearst at a French party, a party in France, and she just randomly happens to like walk into the office, and she decides she's just randomly going to collect this envelope with super important documents, like big documents about an agreement between France and England in the event that Germany invades, and Hearst's publication makes it public. And I just thought to myself, Marion, were you doing a little bit of espionage? Because that seems very convenient that you picked up exactly that envelope on exactly that day. So I was just wondering, maybe she was a cheeky spy on the side. It was fun to go and read about all the characters in film and television filmmaking at the time. Learn a little bit more about them and about those events and some of the films that she made. I do have to wonder, you know, if she didn't have the support of this news mogul, would she have had the success that she had? She was very beautiful. So many of those people were, man, they were absolutely gorgeous. There's some really great photos in there, and I'm just like, wow. I don't know, maybe you guys have seen some more of her films. Give me a second, my light just went out. There we go. highlight. Turn on, please.